credit card balances have increased by 24 billion, reaching 1.17 trillion, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York in their Q3 of 2024 report. And amongst all of the reasons for this happening, such as stagnation in income, cost of living crisis, low job market, I think one major reason of this happening is education and people actually knowing what are credit cards, how do they work, and how they are keeping normal people like me and you poor. In this video, I want to walk you through exactly that. What are credit cards? How do they actually work? And give you interactive examples of how long it actually takes to pay off a credit card balance. This video is inspired by a situation in my life where, without going into too much detail, I literally had someone stand in front of me and tell me, I don't know how credit cards work, I don't know how to use them, and pretty much I don't know what's going on. Yet 99.9% of us hold a credit card, use a credit card, and I think that's part of the big reason why we end up in debt, and we actually don't realize the consequences of using this tool or a financial product. And myself is an example of that. I still ended up in credit card debt even though I'm a financial professional at the moment. So I think this video would be really useful and very eye-opening for those of you who don't want to end up in credit card debt or already have and are trying to make their way out of it. So what is actually a credit card? Do not get this wrong. A credit card is a credit facility. A credit card is a card that your issuing bank can offer you if you are a very good customer, or you can apply for yourself. It is a card that you can use for purchases, transactions, to pay your bills, rent, to do shopping, to do your daily expenses such as fuel, food, anything of that sorts. But you don't actually pay for it with your own money. The issuing bank is paying for those transactions on your behalf. And what then happens is every single month at an agreed date, they bill you for those transactions, which means that they pay on your behalf and then they give you a bill for the amount of transactions that you have accrued on that card. And then you must repay that bill by the agreed date in your credit contract. So how do credit cards actually work? And here is where it becomes a bit more interesting and a little bit more complicated. Now, because your bank is allowing you to use this credit facility or this credit card to pay for the things that you want to pay until you get billed for it, means that they are actually lending you money. Which brings me to my second point, is that lending money is usually never free. Which brings me to my next point, that banks became really smart and decided to start charging fees for this service of you using their money to pay for things until they bill you back for those things. So in this day and age, those fees usually are in the form of interest. And because credit cards can be used to purchase anything and anything from groceries to clothes to shoes to furniture to car to plane ticket, that means that this spending is unsecured spending. It means that you have nothing to show for it. Essentially, if you were to spend £1,000 on shoes or $1,000 on shoes and you couldn't repay your credit card balance, the bank can't really do anything to recover this money because it can't take away your shoes and sell it in order to recover their balance. This is the difference with a mortgage. When you take out a mortgage, you still take out a credit facility, but that is secured against your house. It is secured against an asset. So if you were to fail to pay off that mortgage, the bank has the right to repossess your house, to take your house, sell it on the market so it can cover the loan that it provided to you. However, this cannot happen with credit cards because credit cards, most often than not, are used for unsecured spending. Which brings me to my next point. Because credit cards are used on unsecured spending, this means that it is a higher risk for the banks to provide this lending. So if you could not repay the balance on your credit card, it is very difficult for them to recover the balance on that credit card. And because they are taking such a high risk, they would require a higher return, which means they will charge you and me a very high interest for the pleasure of using this credit facility. So a recap. Credit cards are a credit facility that we can use to purchase anything and everything. And because we can purchase anything and everything, which is most often than not an unsecured spending, this then is a higher risk for banks because they might not be able to recover the balance on the credit card if we were to default on our payments. And because they are taking a higher risk, they require a higher return like any business. And that's why they charge us very high interest rates, which in turn makes it very difficult for us to repay those balances and end up in this vicious cycle of being in credit card debt for years and years and years, and either having to pay thousands and thousands more in interest cost, or like some people do, declare bankruptcy. So in order to put this into perspective for you in this part of the video, I just want to show you an example. What would happen if I was to purchase a $2,000 sofa right now on a credit card? How long it will take me to repay it? How much I would get charged in interest if I was to only put down minimum payments, if I was to put some extra payments, and let's just see how this works. So I am sharing my screen here, and I have made this little table myself, and I have taken 27.99% as an interest rate on a credit card because this is what I literally have at the moment. So this is real life, and I have assumed that the minimum payment would be 2.5% of the credit card balance because, again, this is what I have in my credit agreement at the moment. So if I was to buy a $2,000 sofa right now, this would result in an interest charge for the month at $46.65. Total balance will then be brought to $2,046.65, and my minimum repayment would be $51.17. My balance will then at the end of the month be $1,995.48, and I would have only repaid $4.52 from the balance. Now, just from looking how much of the balance we actually repay is just giving you an idea how long this can take if we were to not put any extra payments and if we were only paying the minimum. So if I scroll really far down, at month 195, which is roughly 16 and a quarter years, I would have already been charged $7,364.83 in interest, while I have only repaid $713 of that credit card balance. So it would take me around 40 and over 40 years to repay a credit card balance of $2,000, and I will be charged more than $20,000 in interest. So that sofa would have cost me over $20,000 when the original price was just $2,000. Let that literally sink in. Now let's see another scenario. What if I was to pay the minimum payment, but I also added an extra payment of $100 a month? And I paid this until my balance was gone. So if I was to pay $100 extra for the next couple of years, I would have paid off my credit card in year 2, so in 20 months, which is exactly 1 year and 8 months. My total interest charge would be $476. So all in all, that sofa would have costed me $2,476, and I would have paid off the balance in almost a couple of years. Look at how much difference just a $100 extra payment makes to a credit card balance. Now, normal people carry a lot more than $2,000 of balance on their credit card. So what if I was to buy something for $5,000? Then my minimum monthly repayment is coming to $127, and my interest charge is actually $116, and I'm only repaying $11.29 of the balance. Now, if we were to see how that would go if I was not doing anything else, in 16 and a quarter of years, I would have gotten charged over $18,000 in interest, and I would have only repaid not even half of that balance. So this will then cost me 36, almost $50,000 just in interest for buying something that is $5,000. And what if I incorporate this extra payment of $100 every month? So it will take me 48 months to repay a $5,000 credit card balance, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 4 years. And my total interest charge would be $2,768. So I would have paid a total of $7,768 for something that costed me only $5. You can see how quickly you can end up in a very vicious debt cycle by using a credit card and only being able to afford to pay the minimum payment. And you can also see how much of a big difference just paying an extra $100 a month on your credit card balance makes when it comes to repaying the balance and actually how much interest you get charged. Now I know some of you will come back and say yes, but some credit cards have offers and you have interest-free period and blah blah blah. That is totally fine. That is a totally different ballgame and totally different way of using and hedging credit cards. However, 90% of those people who use credit cards, they are already in bad situation and they cannot afford to repay it. So even if you are paying with no interest, for example, let's take this example, okay? Let's say you had an interest-free period of 24 months, okay? And you don't get charged interest. You bought something for $5,000, you're paying the minimum repayment, and you didn't put anything extra. In 2 years, you would have only repaid less than half of that balance, which is $2,276, right? Then, most of those people, they don't have the means to repay this balance after the interest-free period. So they again start accruing interest and again stuck in that cycle. Now, some of you will say, yes, but I can use it